Okay, so today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm actually planning to make my AllSky camera. Now I have an ASI 178MC, so colour camera, and it comes with a sort of fisheye lens, so perfect for doing the AllSky thing. And I've got myself an enclosure. Now, got this one wrong size. So I've got this enclosure here. I've got a Raspberry Pi 4 with the 8GB of RAM version, and I've already loaded up the AllSky camera software onto this, so I'll talk about that later. And my plan is to, I've got these very tough and strong Velcro strips, so my plan is to attach the Pi to the base here, and then attach the camera on the top like that, and then the lid will go on, and I'm missing one other thing, be right back. Okay, and I've got a dome here which will be sitting over the top of this on the lid here. Now, one thing you'll notice, you'll see this red ring attached here. One of the problems that I had when I ordered this, I didn't realize that I don't know if you can see, but the lip on this is, move it a bit closer, the lip here is pretty small. It doesn't come with screw holes, and a lot of them do have, you know, a much fatter lip on here and have holes so you can actually screw it onto the lid, which I didn't have. So what I did was I 3D printed this, and this is a version here, and I just sort of made it so that it will sit snug over that. So if I put this on here like so, you can see, I mean obviously I'll take the plastic off, but you can see it sits in there quite nicely. That sits like that, and basically then I'll screw the whole thing down, silicone around here just to waterproof it, and then screw this down here. So let's get started. Okay, just jumping to future me, because I actually have installed I put the camera together already. I just want to talk a little bit about the hardware first that I chose. So I chose the ASI 178MC color camera. Now, as far as I know, the AllSky software is still only compatible with ZWO cameras, or the little camera that you can get for the Raspberry Pi. It's not compatible with other makes like QHY. I don't think that's changed recently, but you can check if it has, but just be aware of that. Now, if you were just using the AllSky camera to look at just sort of the cloud cover, you know, remotely during a night session, then you could go for a cheaper camera that didn't have such great resolution. But I also wanted to use the other capabilities of the AllSky camera, and that was producing the kilograms, which shows you how the cloud cover was during the night, star trail image or time lapse, and also, you know, capturing meteors and fireballs. So I spent a little bit more money on it and went for this camera because I, you know, had some good resolution, nice pixel size, and also it came with a lens already, sort of more fisheye lens that is, you know, ideal for using an AllSky camera. So that's why I chose that one. The other thing is the Raspberry Pi. Now, it does state you can use a Raspberry 2 or Raspberry 3, but the thing is, yes, it will get you some images, and you can, again, if you're just looking at cloud cover, it will work perfectly fine. In fact, I tried it on a Raspberry Pi 3 first, but my understanding is that if you wanted to do the other things like get the time lapses and the kilograms, etc., you won't be able to do that with a Pi 2 or a Pi 3. The Pi 3 only has 1GB of RAM, which is quite a decent sort of limitation on it. So Chad from Patriot Astro recommended that you use the Pi 4, and also that will come in 4 and 8GB models, and I bought the 8GB one that was recommended as well, just because it'll be a lot easier for the whole thing to make these things at the end of the night, these time lapses, etc. And also, hopefully, you won't get the throttling back in the AllSky software that I was getting with the Pi 3. So, Pi 4 is recommended. It is more expensive, significantly more expensive than the Pi 3s. But I think if you really want those extra features, then it's worth it. Shop around a bit because the Pi 4s vary quite a lot in price. I found a lot that were over 400 New Zealand dollars, but I managed to get one for about 240 New Zealand dollars, will be significantly cheaper than that or less than that in US dollars or pounds, for example. Now, as far as the installation of the software is concerned, I'm not going to go through that because I think you're better off going to Patriot Astro's YouTube channel, Chad's YouTube channel. Great resource for a ton of information about, particularly about Nina, but also there's a video here called DIY Your Own AllSky Camera Updated, and he updated it 11 months ago. Now, there will be changes since then as well, so be aware of that, but I recommend going through that. He goes through step by step how you can install the software onto your Raspberry Pi, and then once you got it up and running on the Pi, some of the changes you need to make within the Pi software in order to get it running how you want it, running for your particular hardware, like the camera, and also setting up the time zone where you are, etc., on planet Earth, and whether you want to save the images, not save the images, daytime ones, nighttime ones, etc., etc. So yeah, I'll put a link in the description below to his down here, his YouTube channel, and it's this particular video, and that's your best resource for installing the software. I followed through this back in November. Again, as I said, there may have been changes since then because I've still been waiting on the hardware until recently. So but back in November 2022, I was able to follow this through. Anyway, we'll go back to constructing the AllSky camera. Okay, so I put some black tape on here just to hold it in place while I drill the holes so it stays in one place. It's slightly off center because I want to position the camera up a little bit to give myself enough room for getting the USB cable into the Pi with it sitting sort of more up this end. So I put it in the middle, there's not enough room for the USB cable to go from the AllSky Pi to the 178 ASI 178 MC. So we'll just get this, start drilling these holes. Okay, and I've also roughly got a hole here, a center point where I'm going to drill my hole next. My advice is don't use old silicone. I'm just going to leave the excess sticking out there because it should help make a seal. Okie doke, so now we want to have a look and see roughly where this is going to be sitting so I can get the camera so it's sticking out of the top like that, so that's not too bad. Alright, I'll just get the pen and mark a few spots. Alright, so I've put some sticky on here already. So what I'm going to do is, to make sure that I get this correct, I'm going to stick these on. Like so. These things bind really strongly. So, got to make sure I get it in the right place first go, because it's not going to come back up again. Alright, last thing is I'm going to stick the camera on here. Actually, I will check one more thing, because I've got to put a cable in here on the side. I probably can't see it down there, but that's where the power goes. So I actually bought myself a right-handed cable. I've got a right-angled one here. There you go, plug in like that. I will just leave that there attached like that for the moment. And then we're going to put the camera on. Okay, and now I'm going to put, same thing, these strips on. And oops, gotta be careful because it's going to stick very quite easily. Further down, but that shouldn't matter. There we go. So that's basically, just going to unplug that if I can. So the next thing I have to do is, if I'm going to be, I've got a cable here which will plug in. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the inside. I have put a little sort of grommet type thing through here so that the cable can run through. It's a little loose and I'm not sure if it's going to be entirely waterproof, so I might end up just sticking another short piece of cable just sit there just to help sort of bind the whole thing up. And I've got the right angle USB-C here, so I've got some room there. I've switched it out, this USB 3 cable, for the one that came with the camera because it's just a little shorter here and a little more flexible. And I probably will, but I think I'll get some new silicone for that. Just run a bit of silicone right around the bottom here so that no water can get in through there. But otherwise, that's how it's going to sit. And I will now fire it up and see if it's working. Okay, so the camera is plugged in, just sitting over here, and I've just plugged the USB cable in over to power here. And this is the AllSky sort of web UI that you'll be using, and there's information that Chad will give you about how you get that all set up and onto your browser, and you just click onto that, you make a shortcut and you just click into it. So this is the live view here, and so you can see it's got this very sort of fisheye look, and I'm over here and my screens are over here. I've got my microscope there, and it's telling me at the moment the sensor's at 29 degrees on the camera, sorry. The exposure, it's set to auto, so it's doing 878.8 millisecond exposures, and the gain has been set to 200. That's why it's quite bright here. If we go under images, this is where you'll find your images, your time lapses, your kilograms, and your star trails here. Now, this is only set on my one to capture images at night. So if I was doing this during the day, you wouldn't see a little icon here and a date showing when you've been capturing them. But because I'm doing this in the room at night, I've done it so you can actually see it. So if I click on here, you can see it's capturing the images here. And it's from these images that it'll make your star trails and your time lapses, etc. And yeah, if you're finished with them, hit delete. At the end of the night, when you do click on these, you should find a time lapse in here. But at the moment, it says no time lapses for this day because we're not, you know, the night time hasn't finished. Camera settings. There'll be some changes to make in the camera settings. A lot of them you won't change, some of them you can tweak, and Chad goes through what ones you can. It's worth changing at the outset. At the moment I've got auto exposure for my nighttime settings, but you can put no and then put a manual exposure in here. Auto brightness, there's a gain, an auto gain, which I've got set at the moment, but again, you can use manual gain. Down here in some of the both daytime and nighttime settings, I won't go through all those, is the sort of red balance and the blue balance and auto white balance, yes or no, on or off, I mean. And then down here you'll set your latitude and longitude. And you don't want to do the usual where you put in a minus if you're in the southern hemisphere. You just put in the S after the number. So, and this one will have the E for east. And as it says for the northern hemisphere, you'd put north and west. So southern hemisphere, south and east. And then it knows where you are. So don't put a minus or a plus in there. But yeah, so he'll run through a lot of the settings that you can change here, but you don't have to change many of them. Default seems to work for a lot of it. If I go into the editor, there are some things that his tutorial will tell you what to change. For example, here you choose between ZWO or the Raspberry Pi IHQ camera, and I put ZWO in here because that's what I'm using. Uploading your images to the website, put that as true. And things like upload frequency, do you want to upload every image or every 5 images or whatever, and you set that. So this is set to 1, so every image will appear. I won't go through all the settings, but you can see here, so for example, daytime captures. I've said at the moment, yes, for it to capture during the day, but I've got daytime save set to false, so it doesn't actually save them. But I might actually change this to false because I don't necessarily need to be looking at the camera during the day. Time-lapse set to true or false, whether you want it to make a time-lapse or not. Same with, where are we down here? Upload your video once it's been made to the website so you can look at it. This is your star trails, set that to true. Keograms, set that to true if you want to see those at the end of the night, etc. And you can see here, so for star trails, set to true to generate a star trails image of each night. So it'll do it at the end of each night. And this one, upload your keogram at the end of each night, and the time-lapse the same thing as the end of each night. Under here is your LAN settings. I'm not connected by an Ethernet cable. I'm actually Wi-Fi, so there's nothing under here. WLAN, here it tells me my interface is up and working and onto my home network. So that's and it says the link quality is good, so that's good. You can change your password here. This will tell you on the system, will tell you how the system is going at the moment. So you can see here that my uptime has been 12 minutes. It knows it's a Raspberry Pi 4 Model B revision 1.5, and my SD card and how much is free. And you can see on the disk usage how much has been used for the software that's on there. My CPU temperature here, 50.6 degrees. And I have set the fan that's on here, that's in the Raspberry Pi, to turn on and off whether it gets to, I can't remember what I set it to, whether it was 60 or 70 degrees, but at the moment it's turned off because it's below the temperature I set. Memory and CPU load quite low, and the throttle status here, no throttling, so it's running nicely. When I was using the Raspberry Pi 3, this was showing it was throttling and it wasn't quite functioning as well. Over here, you can refresh the screen. You can stop and start the AllSky software, and you can shut down or you can reboot the Raspberry Pi. And this allows you to change from light mode to dark mode. So look, some of the settings. So if we're looking, if you want to find out about how to change the temperature at which the fan will kick in for this particular Raspberry Pi that comes with a little fan, I'll show you here. So here is, I'll put a link to this, but new Raspberry Pi 4 case fan, and this will run through and show you how to put the little fan into the lid and then what pins to plug those wires into. So I'll put a link in the description there. This is another video that will show you how to get into the Raspberry Pi software itself and change some settings so that you can tell the fan to turn on and off, because when I first set this up, the fan was going all the time, and I didn't really think it needed to be going when the CPU and everything was quite cool. So I'll put a link to that as well. If yours doesn't come with a fan, then obviously you don't have to worry about it. But you know, those 2 bits of software, videos are really good for you know, organizing that. So fortunately, after about 3 weeks of clouds and rain, we finally got a clear night. So I was able to get the telescopes out and going and test out the AllSky camera. And this is it running. I just set it on auto exposure and auto gain. It threw the gain up to about 200. And the exposures initially were 2-second exposures, but you'll see very shortly it'll kick into 20-second exposures. And then there we go. We can see the Milky Way coming across quite nicely. And here is a keogram. To the left, the light patch is sunset, and to the right, the white patch is sunrise. And then we can see through the night it was clear, but if we just sort of zoom in a little bit towards that area of sort of vertical whitish areas, those are the clouds coming in, and we can see the time there was kind of just a bit before 5:30. So it's quite good to be able to review the night, particularly if you've had clouds come through in the night and you know roughly when you can eliminate some of your images. And the last thing is the star trails for the night. You can see the south celestial pole is to the upper right, and the very bright band coming through is not a fireball, it's actually just the moon rising and coming into the field of view. Okay, so forward fast 2 weeks, and I've actually got version 2 here. Now version 1 worked fine, but the problem was I was a little bit worried about the heat and being in that small box, and I noticed that when I was looking at AllSky, whilst the temperature of the CPU was sort of getting up to just over 60 degrees and then dropping down again when the fan kicked in, the sensor on the camera was up at about 45-47 degrees Celsius, which seemed kind of high, and especially when I hadn't been running that long. So I decided to put it in a bigger box. So it's otherwise been put together pretty much identically. The only sort of difference is that the camera here is sitting on on a Raspberry Pi 1 case underneath, and the actual Raspberry Pi 4 is sitting over here. Which gives it a bit more room for air circulation. I also had to reprint a bigger surround here, because when I opened up the box to grab out the second dome, I found the rubber grommets that I didn't realize were there, and that takes up a bit extra room, so I had to print this a bit deeper, and I decided to print it a little bit sort of wider, if you like, for better for the screws attaching, and a bit more of the camera sticking out. So before it was just the lens sticking out, now I've got a bit more of the camera surround, so I think the lens is a little bit higher in the dome, so there's a little less distortion out at the edges, and also there's a bit of a gap between the roof of the case and the camera, and I'm hoping that some of the heat from the camera and also from the Pi will act as a dew shield up here, but I'll have to try over some nights where there's a decent dew going on. The other thing I did was put some shrink wrap over this cable just to make it a little bit fatter, so that this would actually grip onto it and make it a bit more watertight. I put some silicone in each end just to make sure no water goes up through there. So yeah, what I'm going to do is now show you the inside of the case. So as I mentioned, the camera is now sitting on top of our Raspberry Pi 1 case. I think the Raspberry Pi 1 is still sitting in there actually. And we've got the Raspberry Pi 4 over here. So it means that the camera is not sitting on top of a warm Raspberry Pi 4, further heating it up, the camera up. There's a bit more air circulating through here, and that's also helped by the fact that I have a shorter USB 3 cable, which I managed to find. And then I also got hold of this extension it's a right angle USB-C on one end, a female USB-C on the other, and it meant that I could plug the cable that came with the Raspberry Pi 4 into this extension. So it was PowerPoint at one end and USB-C on the other. So hopefully this will keep everything just a bit cooler, but allow a bit of heat to get up into the dome to act like a dew heater. Okay, well that pretty much wraps up this video. Hopefully you find it useful. If you want to put together your own AllSky camera, if you have, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I've gone through mostly, the sort of hardware setup and touching a bit on the software, but I really recommend looking at Patriot Astro's video on how to set up the software more fully. It's quite a comprehensive video, so it's really, really useful. So when I'm doing my imaging sessions, I'll be able to capture some nice time lapses of the sky. If I do a session overnight and have a sleep, I can always get up and quickly check the time lapse to see whether I had clouds or not. And also maybe get a nice star trail image at the end of it. And also it'll be really useful because at the moment I've got cameras inside the observatory which looking at the sky, and that's fine when the roof is rolled off. But when the roof is on, of course, it's just looking at the roof of the observatory and I can't tell necessarily whether or not it's cleared or not without going outside. Not that that's very difficult, but if you're in the middle of a good TV show and you want to quickly glance across and go, oh, got to pause it, got to rush outside and roll the roof off again, that's where the AllSky camera will come in handy. And who knows, might even capture a fireball or two. So look, until next time, I hope everybody's getting lots and lots of clear skies.